With nearly 6 million followers and subscribers across multiple platforms, our next guest is on a mission to make the financial industry less male, pale, and stale. She's the founder and CEO of the global phenomenon Your Rich BFF, making the rules of personal finance more accessible and digestible for non-experts and underserved communities. A big welcome now to New York Times bestselling author and entrepreneur Vivian Tu. Vivian, thanks for joining us here on Main and Wall. We're glad to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Vivian, you started working on Wall Street fresh out of college, and you've been privy to a lot of change in the financial sector over the years. Give us your take on why we're finally starting to see more investors of color and what's historically kept them from feeling not only comfortable, but also confident in this space.
Yeah, historically, financial services has so heavily catered to older white male populations, and they've always had resources. But suddenly now, with the rise of social media and what I like to call, finfluencing and people talking more about their money and their personal finances on the internet, suddenly communities of color, women, the LGBTQ population, minorities, immigrants, any population that hasn't had that access before is now able to get it. And as it turns out, these populations are just as eager and hungry to learn about investing and saving and budgeting as our, traditional Caucasian communities.
And Vivian, you have an incredible story. We know that you were on the floor at the New York Stock Exchange for 2.5 years before transitioning to digital media sales and strategy. You later became a millionaire at the age of 27. For people who may be unfamiliar with your background, why did you leave Wall Street, and how did you eventually make this jump into content creation?
Yeah, I ended up leaving Wall Street because I felt like I wanted to make more money and wear ripped jeans at work. And when I pivoted over to the media and tech space, all of my new colleagues were saying things like, hey, if you've worked in finance, if you're coming from Wall Street, can you help me rebalance my 401k? Can you help me pick a health insurance plan? Should I even be investing in our company stock options? What does that even mean? And so I started creating content for them, frankly, just for my 7 friends. And as it turns out, the very first video on TikTok ended up going viral, and a lot more people than just my friends turned out needed that information.
Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you'd end up doing what you're doing now?
No, absolutely not. It was a huge accident. And I always joke, I'm an accidental influencer. I never meant to do this, but I do feel really grateful that I've been given this platform, because I didn't have anybody to look up to that looked like me until I met my mentor at my very first job. And I call her my rich BFF because she taught me so much about money, whether that be investing in my 401k or taking advantage of credit card points to travel hack, or even just being really mindful of my spending. And now I get to do that for so many other people.
Your advice has inspired millions of people to be more open and transparent regarding conversations surrounding money. You've got a new book out, Rich AF, The Winning Money Mindset That Will Change Your Life. It became an instant hit, becoming a New York Times bestseller. I know you're joining us from your national book tour, which we heard is completely sold out. Congratulations. What inspired you to write the book, and what do you hope people will take away from it?
Yeah, again, the book is a happy accident. The content that I create is helpful, but it is piecemeal. Every single day I put out a video, typically anywhere between 30 to 60 seconds. And people are saying, hey, this information is great, but do you have essentially a step-by-step where I should watch video 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to, video 1,000? And I didn't have that. I started creating longer form content. I had a podcast, but there was just such a demand for a one-stop shop. And so, writing a book just seemed like the most natural progression, and people were asking for it. And now I essentially have a roadmap where people who have no idea what to do with their money can pick this book up, read it from page 1 to the very last page, and walk away feeling more confident, more capable, and just more ready to take on their financial journey.
I know you interact with your fans on social media, but here you are on the road. What's it been like meeting your fans in person for the first time?
It is the best experience ever. It's one thing to talk to, the BFFs over digital mediums, but to have people in real life come up to me and say things like, you are the reason why I started a Roth IRA, or you are the reason why I negotiated my salary last year. And guess what? I got an extra $10,000. That's life-changing money for me. It is so humbling, and it reminds me why I, get up and do what I do every day.
It's incredible to think about the impact that you have on people's lives. You dive into so many topics on your weekly podcast called Net Worth and Chill. You break down some really complicated economic or business concepts into easy to understand terms, which is what we try to do here at Main and Wall. What's the biggest money mistake that people make, and how can they fix it?
Yeah, I think the biggest money mistake is people assume you actually have to be very wealthy to invest. No. How do you think those wealthy people got wealthy in the first place? They were investing then. And so I always just say, the earlier you can get started, the better you are. People think you have to pick the perfect investment or time the market. And as someone who worked on Wall Street and saw lots of incredibly, prolific hedge funds blow up because a couple people made bad investment decisions. No one knows the perfect investment, but it's really time in the market versus timing the market and picking the perfect investment that's going to help you get rich over time.
Well, getting access to finance information is a lot easier than it used to be. We know that. But there's also a lot of misinformation out there, especially on social media. So what advice do you have for people who are trying to grow their personal wealth but just don't know where to start?
Yeah, I would say you can utilize social media as a resource, but anything that you read about or see online, just double check it, especially against multiple reputable sources. Anything that I say, I hope people are then taking that and Googling it and seeing if, reputable sources on television broadcasts, as well as publications and other finance professionals are agreeing and saying the same thing or having similar views, or at least acknowledging that that is a legitimate viewpoint to have, because if you're able to corroborate those viewpoints, you're going to feel a lot more confident actually taking on those tips and tricks.
Great information. New York Times bestselling author, entrepreneur, and your rich BFF, Vivian Tu. Thanks so much for joining us here on Main and Wall.
Thank you so much for having me.